Hello everyone. So I'm making this video to discuss the concept of what I call early stupid. So what is early stupid? So it's actually a good thing. So it's not a stupid thing. So it's called early stupid, but it's a good thing. It's something that we should try to do as often as we can. So what does it mean? Well, we can imagine like a quadrant. So a quadrant like four possibilities. So there are two parameters. There is stupid and smart, and there is early and late. So we have then early smart and late smart, and then early stupid and late stupid. So those are the four combinations. So let's try to understand what they mean. So in general, success, whatever that means, of course, it's a personal also, it has a personal interpretation. Success can mean different things to different people. But let's see more in the business world, investment world, commercial world, etc. Now, very, very often, success depends on being early. There are a lot of reasons for that. So when you're early, there is less competition that allows you to build some know-how, to build some expertise, to build a dominant position, and then it's harder for the new entrant. So there is a strong advantage in being not necessarily the first mover, but in being early. So it's like, let's say Microsoft was early in operating systems, or Apple was early in computers, and Google was early in search engine. Now, they were not the first, but still they were early. So Facebook was early in social media. It was not the first, but then they had a tweak, and their social media was slightly different than the others. It had the real names, and it was based on pre-existing physical connections and not an attempt to recreate artificial connections. So in general, it is obviously beneficial to be early. It's much better to be early than to be late. In some way, the more early you are, the better. Of course, you also have to be right, yeah? But this is left to chance to some extent. So, but being early potentially is something you can control more than being right. So again, if you wanted to invest in the internet, or if you wanted to invest in, I don't know, like let's say smartphones, or you wanted to invest in whatever industry, so like crypto, whatever, it's always better to be early than to be late. Then we have smart and stupid. So smart, so let's try to simplify and to define smart. So first of all, what is intelligence in very, very short definition? So intelligence will be, and this is kind of similar to how AI systems work, is really the number of parameters you can consider. So let's say a very simple creature like a worm, it has a nervous system. I don't think it has specifically a brain, but it has a nervous system. And let's say that the worm is in the shadow, and then for some reason the sun moves a little bit because the time passes. So, and now the worm ends up being in the sun, and it's bad for him. He could dry, he could die, basically. So the worm will immediately react basically to moving. It will roll and try to go back in the shadow. So it will just move until it reaches the shadow again, for example. Or let's say, and those usually are extremely simplified models. So it's like, for example, the worm is going to seek moist, and that will usually make him go underground, and that also protect him. So those instincts have evolved over time to increase the chances of survival of the worm. And so we can imagine more complex worms. So a more complex worm, for example, let's say, so the simplest worm will only consider shadow versus no shadow. But let's say maybe a more advanced worm could also consider the sound. So for example, let's say that he's in the sun, so that has to give him some pain. So being in the shadow should be pleasurable, and being in the sun should be painful, so that he's pushed to move towards the shadow, because that increases chances of survival. Then he has a small brain, so it's not a brain, but it has let's say a simplified nervous system with few parameters. And so what he's going to do is going to decide to move. That's the only action it can take. So once it feels the sun, that generates pain, because through evolution, the one that stayed in the sun died. So then the one that are in the sun, when they are in the sun, they feel pain, and then they do the only thing they can do, which is move, and they move until they are in the shadow. So that will be one parameter, basically. So sun, yes or no, move. Now let's say that there is a more advanced worm. So for example, the more advanced worm is in the sun, now is in the shadow, then the sun comes, now it feels pain, but instead of immediately reacting to the pain, it first tries to hear if there is a sound, like a predator or whatever, because yes, it makes sense to move away from the sun if there is sun, to go in the shadow. But then what if there is a bird that notices him because he moves? So as long as he's still, the bird doesn't notice, but most animals notice movement specifically. So when moving increase the chances of being detected. So let's say there is a bird watching. Now you don't know if there is a bird or not. So if there is a bird, maybe it's better not to stay in the sun, at least until the bird leaves, and then go in the shadow. So it's okay to suffer, to endure some pain by being in the shadow, sorry, by being in the sun, so that you don't take the risk of being eaten by the bird. But this requires an extra parameter. It requires being able to listen, and then, let's say, being scared if you hear noise like a bird or any noise, really. And so as long as there is noise, you will not go to the shadow. You will stay in the sun, even if it can kill you, because you expect, you hope, I mean, unconsciously, of course, like, not even unconsciously, it's like simply through a natural, instinctive, evolutionary mechanism, you expect that basically once the sound stops, that means the threat is gone, so then you go into the shadow. Now we have two parameters. So if there is no sound, so you account for sun, but you also account for noise, for sound. So if there is no sound, as soon as you detect the sun, you move to go in the shadow. But if you detect sun, then you check if there is noise. And if there is noise, you wait. And you wait until the noise stops, and then you go in the shadow. Now this could also not be optimal, because potentially the noise could never stop, and you may end up drying in the sun. So then there could be a third parameter, like a timer, a counter, where basically, so if the sun comes, you feel pain, but you check if there is sound, if there is noise or not. And let's say noise could give you fear. So if there is noise, and so if there is just sun, then you have pain, and so you move away. If there is sun and noise, then you have pain from the sun and fear from the sound, from the noise, and so you don't move. The fears make you not move. It's a second parameter. But then if the sound lasts for too long and you're at risk of, let's say, drying completely, then you will die anyway. So better to take the chance, better move anyway, even with the noise, hoping that either it's not a bird or it will not notice you. So then there is a point where maybe the pain gets more and more intense as you wait more time in the sun, and so eventually you will move anyway because of the excess pain, even if there is still the noise. So now we have three parameters. We have the pain, I mean the sun, let's say, that generates pain, the noise that generates fear, and then the waiting, a kind of counter of how long you've been in the sun that will generate more pain. So it's three parameters. Now there could be more parameters. Now you could be able to discern what is the sound, because is it the sound of the water? Is it the sound of people screaming? Is it the sound of a bird? And only if it's the sound of a bird, then you consider it a threat. So now you have to be able to analyze sounds to determine which sounds are a threat, which one are not a threat. And eventually, it can get more and more and more complex. So of course, we are a lot more complex than that, and we evaluate a very, very large number of parameters. A few consciously, a lot unconsciously. So intelligence, we can consider, is the ability to consider more parameters. So it's the ability to make a decision. It's called an inference, so to make an inference, to make a decision, based on a larger number of parameters. So if you take a decision based on 2 parameters, you're not very smart. If you take, like a worm, if you take a decision based on 1,000,000 parameters, then you are smarter. And that's how I think those language models work in AI. So in some way, the more parameters they can compute, the more the answer is sophisticated. So there were very simple model. I remember one called ELISA in the 90s. It was super, super simple, and it's obvious that it's not very smart. just because it accounts for a few parameters. And now we have models that account for a very large number of parameters, and so those are smarter models. So this is the definition I will use of intelligence in this context, but also it's probably a good definition in general. How many parameters can be taken into account when making a decision? So in general, again, let's say in an investment, in a business decision, etc., if we want to be smart, we have to try to use as many parameters as possible. The problem is that, unlike, let's say, the example of the worm, where it's really the worm against nature, the worm against the environment, or, well, potentially a predator like the bird, which has its own intelligence, so the bird can also adapt and learn not to make noise because it scares worms to catch worms, for example. But the thing is, so again, when you work against the environment, it's kind of simple. The more parameters, the better. But when you're competing against other intelligences, then it gets more tricky, because just like you can use a lot of parameters to make the best decision, they can also do the same, and especially if they are against you, they are competing with you in some way, they are adversarial to you, then they are also going to try to use a lot of parameters to understand what you need, basically to compete with you. So it's really two intelligence fighting with each other. And then you may have millions of participants, like in a market, you have millions of participants, each one being smart and each one having a lot of parameters. So each one, you have millions of players, each one having millions of parameters, and each one trying to compete with each other. So now it gets really, really hard to make an intelligent decision. What will be then an intelligent decision? What will be then an intelligent decision if you have millions of participants, each one using millions of parameters, each one competing with each other? Now it gets extremely difficult, because what exactly is going to give you an edge? What is going to give you an advantage? Especially because it's not just about intelligence, but it's also about asymmetry of information. So how much information do you have? So the more you are inside something, the more you know. So if you're the CEO or the founder, or you work for a specific company, you have much more information than some outside guy that is thinking about if investing or not. And in some way, it's often the quality of the information you have, because out of millions of participants, it's very unlikely that you will end up being the one that has the most information. So there clearly are people that have more information than you. So then it's very difficult to fight the battle in terms of being smart. It's very difficult to say, I'm going to win because I'm the smartest, because it's just so difficult to control in a competitive environment. Yes, you're smart, but everyone else is smart, and some people have more access to information than you, have more experience than you, etc., etc., etc. So it's difficult to fight only on the basis of being smart. That is, only on the basis of having the ability to process more parameters. Because one thing is having the ability to process more parameters. One thing is having the information to use those parameters. Because if you can process a lot of parameters, but you don't have good quality input, then it's going to be almost useless. And even if you're very smart, which why would you be? Because at the end, out of millions of people, what are the chances that you are the smartest? But also, what are the chances that you are the one that has access to the most information, so that you can effectively use those parameters to make a good decision? So it's very difficult to compete on the front of smart. And in general, my personal recommendation would be not even to try. It's the kind of thing where you don't want to put too much energy. So don't try to be smart, because it's very difficult to outcompete millions of people that are also smart, and that each one is using millions of parameters to process information, and that each one has more or less access to information. And it's unlikely that you are the one with the most access to information. You are probably one with a low access to information, or at least you're in the middle. But you probably are not the one with the most access to information. So then how do you compete if it's not about being smart? What is it about? Well, first of all, I'm not recommending being completely stupid either, because it's important to avoid the obvious mistakes. So it's important to not do something completely stupid. So there is no point, I think, trying to do something incredibly smart, but you also want to avoid doing something completely stupid. So you're not going to cut your hand, or you're not going to just burn all of your money, or you're not going to invest all your money in a guy that is a well-known scammer or whatever. So you have also to be careful not to be completely stupid. And this is important, and this is also easy to avoid. You can easily avoid being completely stupid. So let's say if you are a fish, you're not, yes, you will do your best to escape the big fish if it's trying to eat you, and that's difficult. I mean, maybe you will manage, maybe you will not manage, depend how fast you are, how smart you are, and how fast is the other fish. But at least you will not swim in his mouth. You will avoid doing something completely stupid, like swimming in the mouth of the other fish. So, of course, we want to avoid completely stupid things. But I don't think it makes sense to try to compete on being smart, because it's just too competitive, it's just too difficult. So the incremental gain, the incremental benefit is going to be quite low for the reason we explained before. So then what could be more important than being smart? Well, I think it could be being early. So being early is not the same as being smart. It just means that you do something before other people do. So you don't necessarily do it for a very complex or smart reason. You may do it for more than dumb or more than dumb or stupid. Maybe we can say simple. So I mean, I use early stupid because it's fun, but maybe one could use words like simple and complex, early and late. So it could be early simple, early complex, late simple, late complex. So it's more about the degree of complexity you're going to put in your analysis, and it's about the realization that sometimes it doesn't make sense to go for too much complexity, because it just becomes messy. It just becomes like potentially nonsense, especially if it's hyper competitive. So everyone is just trying to outsmart each other, and it kind of doesn't really work. So it just becomes hyper complicated. So you try to avoid, of course, big mistakes, but you also try to avoid overcomplicated. So maybe the best word is simple. Let's say early simple. So you go for something simple. Let's say that in the early days on the internet, you kind of believe in the internet. So you think the internet is the future. So you try to be early, and the reality is, well, of course, you have to be a little bit lucky, because then the market crashed. But if you had invested in the early days of the internet, even in the most crazy stuff, the thing that makes the least sense, stuff that then went to zero within a few years, you will still make huge returns. You will make maybe 100 times your investment, even in stuff that then later on went bankrupt. So being, or of course, maybe you wouldn't sell, and of course there is always an element of risk, but at least at some point you will have a massive gain. Now, of course, once there is a big bubble, potentially you may not be early. So once everyone starts talking about the internet I think in the year 2000, then maybe now you're in bubble territory, you're not early anymore. So the question is really how many, but if you're early, that is, you're using the internet when no one is using it yet, you're one of the first user, and you say, wow, this is amazing, this is the future. Now, so I will give an example. So sometimes it's better to choose to be dumb than to try to be smart. So let's say that it's, of course, to be dumb and early. So let's say you're an early user of the internet, and you're like, wow, the internet is really amazing, this is the future, blah, 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 like in the mid-90s maybe. Then you can really start. So as soon you can try to say, okay, I'm going to invest in different things related to the internet. So you're not going to pick one to say it's clear, because, for example, during the early days of the internet, people thought that the successful company would be the telecom company. So the companies that will manage to extract money, probably they did a lot of analysis, research, etc., and they came to the conclusion that most likely the telecom companies will be the one that will manage to extract money from the internet providers, or the phone companies that will become internet providers. But in reality, this did not happen. The real winners were the companies that offered services like, let's say, Amazon, Google, Facebook, Netflix, which did not even exist in those times. It was not the telecom companies. So, of course, maybe it could have been the telecom companies. There was no way to know that it would not be the telecom companies. But it was better to approach the problem from, let's say, a simple or stupid perspective and say, I have absolutely no idea what is going to work in the internet, but I know the internet is the future. And then investing in many different things. So to say, well, just buy a little bit of every company that is doing something for the internet. Of course, some will massively fail, but some will succeed. But at least you are diversified. So your bet is only on the internet. It's not on a specific stock. Of course, then if you bet only on Amazon, you are super lucky and you make a lot, but maybe Amazon will not have worked. Maybe it will be like pets.com that would have failed. No one could know. So potentially it's better to try to make things as simple as possible, as stupid as possible, and to focus on being early. So as soon as you notice that the internet can be the future, then you can make a lot of small bets. You accept that you're dumb, you accept that you're stupid. You say, I have no idea which specific bet is going to win. I have no idea if it's going to be Amazon or eBay or pets.com or AOL or whatever. You don't know. So you buy a little bit of everything because your goal is to be early. It's not to be smart. You focus on being early and that's it. So everything else you make as simple as possible. So why make a choice like which company to buy if you can just buy a little bit of all of them? So this will be kind of the idea, to try to keep things simple, keep things stupid, and focus on being early. Now, is it wrong to try to be smart? Well, it depends. So the thing is, when you try to be smart, you may succeed or you may fail. So you have to account for the fact that you may fail. So if by being smart, you increase your chances of failure if you are wrong about being smart. Of course, if you are wrong about being early, then it's unfortunate, but you have a certain probability of being right about being early, because you never really know when is the end of, when is the beginning. I mean, what I say is like, it's hard to tell the difference between the end of the beginning and the beginning of the end. So you want to enter at the end of the beginning and not at the beginning of the end. So it's not always easy to know if something is early or not. It's not easy. But again, you try. Maybe you're early, maybe you're not. If you're early, it's good. If you're not early, then it's unfortunate. But then when you add smart versus stupid, you want to be very careful that you don't do something that you think is smart, but if it's not smart, it's going to make everything fail. So it's fine to do something that is smart, you think is smart, and then if you are right, it's amazing, and if you are wrong, it's still okay. You have not created too much damage by being wrong about being smart, because you have to be right about both. So, or at least, because the combinations are with early and late. Of course, late is never good, because once you're late at something, it's over. So you never want to be late. So let's remove late. So that means that you always want to be early. So that's your main bet. Your main bet is about being early. That's what you mainly focus on. You focus on being early. And then, of course, you will not always manage it, but sometimes you will manage it, and hopefully the times when you manage it will pay off and will compensate for the time when you don't manage it. So you try to be early all the time. Now, the thing is, once you're early, then you have to choose if you want to try to be smart or if you want to be stupid. If you want to be stupid, you kind of keep things simple. You make the fact of being early your only bet. So you say the only thing that matters is to be early. So let's say, for example, you're not going to choose the stock, but you're just going to buy all of them. So, and let's say you believe the internet is the future, you just buy in the very, very early day every internet stock available, and some will do very well, some will go bankrupt, doesn't really matter. At least you're early, and you just diversify massively. So you accept that you are stupid. You say, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I still believe I'm early, so I go for it. So you make a very diversified bet, kind of a stupid bet. I mean, diversification is an insurance for not knowing, is an insurance for stupidity. Keeping things simple also is an insurance for not knowing. You purposely, when you keep things simple, you purposely reduce the number of parameters because you don't know any better. So you just say, let's buy a little bit of everything, but at least we are early. So that will be stupid. Smart will be based on these analyses and this and this and that, blah, 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 blah. This is the best company. Now, and you may say, this is the best company and I'm going all in. You're putting all your money in a single company. Now that could work, because if you are early and you're smart, then you will make a fortune. If you're early on the right company, you make a fortune. But the thing is, what if you're right about being early, but wrong about being smart? And turn out that this company, you were right about being early on the internet, but you were wrong about which company it was that succeeded. You put all your money in the wrong company, and then you lose everything. So, and it's a pity because you were right about being early. You were right that the internet was the future, but then you put all your money on, let's say, a single stock because you believe that this is the best company. Then you're going to lose. So when you try to be smart, you have to think, what if I'm wrong? Because if you want to be smart, and let's say instead of picking 100 random companies, you select the one you believe are the 20 best. Now this could make sense because there is not so much difference between diversifying across 100 companies and across 20 companies. Because 20 companies, you still have max 5% on every company. So you just make a kind of a selection. So you say, I'm smart, I'm going to remove the worst ones and select the best ones, but still I'm going to diversify significantly. Because you want that if it turns out that you're wrong about being smart, you can still make money on being early. Basically, when you bet on being smart, you don't want that being smart is going to destroy you if you're wrong. Because if you're early and you're right about being early and you're smart, of course, if you end up really being early and smart, it's perfect. So you go all in on a single stock and you're right. You were both early and smart, that's amazing. But very often you may be right about being early, but wrong about being smart. And so that will really be a pity that you lose all your money. So instead of succeeding, if you had, let's say, if you had bought random stocks on the internet, about internet, in the early days, you will clearly have made a lot of money. But if you go all in on a single stock and it's the wrong one, then you are not going to make money, which will be a pity. So when you try to be smart, you have to consider that you may not be smart, or at least not this time, but you may still be early. So there is the combination where you actually are early, but you are not smart. And you don't want to lose the money or to fail in this situation. So you have to say, okay, I will try to be smart, but I also want to ensure that if I'm not smart, it will still work. Because I still want to be able to make money in case I was right about being early. Because why wouldn't you, if you're right about something, it's good to take something home, to make some money out of it. So if you're right about being early, you don't want to then lose just because you were wrong about being smart. So it's important to be right. I mean, it's important that if you're right about being early, you should make money, whether you're smart or not. Now, if you really don't know, it's better to be stupid, to go for simple. Just buy a little bit of everything. You say, I'm stupid, I don't know anything, but I know that I'm early. I think that I'm early. So you only bet on being early. You don't bet on being smart. So early stupid. If you really think you're smart, then you can also, of course, try to use your intelligence to make a better selection, but you always have to remember, maybe you are wrong about being smart. So make the choice so that even if you are wrong about being smart, you are still going to bring some money home because you were early and not lose everything. And in this case, the example will be, maybe instead of going for every single internet company in the early days, you make a selection of which one you believe are the top 20. So it's difficult that you will get all of them wrong. It's difficult that you will get all of them wrong. Most likely, some will be right. So you will still money, even if you're wrong, you try to be smart, but even if you're wrong about being smart, you have made your choice in a way that you will still profit from being early. So this is the idea. So of course, early smart is the best combination, but it's very difficult. And also, you may very well think you're smart, but you're not. So it's also very risky. It's dangerous. Now, so if you really wanted to go for early smart, then at least hedge your bets. That is, operate in a way that if you're smart, you make money, but if you're not smart, you still make money because you're early. And that's early smart. Then you have early stupid. You accept you're stupid, but you're early. So you do a very simple strategy just to profit from being early. And then there will be late smart, which it can work. I mean, if you really, you missed being early, but you really find out this stock is amazing, blah, 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 you go for late smart. it's also risky, it's difficult, because betting on being smart is much more difficult, it's much more unlikely to happen, to win, to succeed, than betting on being early. So being early is a much simpler bet. It has much higher chance of success. So it's not let's say it's not smart to focusing on being smart. It's much smarter to focus on being early, because it's a lot more predictable. It's a lot easier to identify something because it's early than you are so smart that you can figure out what is good, what is bad. It's very difficult to figure out what is going to be a good choice, what is going to be a bad choice, what is going to be a good investment, what is going to be a bad investment. It's very, very difficult. So it's much more effective to just observe that you're early in something, and then you don't try to make too much complicated analysis. So late smart is also risky. There is a high chance of failure because in general, betting on being smart is risky. There is a high chance of failure. And then of course you have late stupid, which is when everyone gets in, and this actually will be potentially a sign to exit. So in some way you enter into a trade, into an investment, when you think it's early, let's say early, so early stupid, early smart, whatever, but probably better early stupid, or at least if you really want to do early smart, you dilute it with some stupidity, just so that if you are wrong about being smart, you can still make money. So let's say a mix of early smart and early stupid, maybe just early stupid, for sure not just early smart. If you want to go for early smart, always dilute the smart with some stupidity. So make it early smart plus stupid, combine it. Late smart is incredibly risky. You can do it sometimes, but it's very, very risky, because now everyone is aware of the opportunity. And are you really the smartest? Are you really the one with the most information? So trying to be smart about something late is extremely risky. So possibly it's a strategy to avoid. There is very low chance of success, and usually there is not that much upside. But of course there are exceptions, but it's about probability after all. So, and the last option will be late stupid, and late stupid is the time to exit. It's like when you say, okay, so now everyone is joining, so clearly it's late. Now everyone is buying internet stocks, so it's late, so you sell. So late stupid, because late smart, maybe some people are still trying to be smart, and it's not necessarily many of them, and it's a warning system. Soon we are going to reach late stupid. So when there is late smart is a warning signal that at some point late stupid is going to appear. And at some point you reach late stupid. And late stupid means that now the stupid as in also simple. So people that don't really understand anything, or in general they still apply those very simple things, saying internet is the future, but now they say, because one thing is saying internet is the future when almost no one does it, and one thing is saying internet is the future when everyone agrees internet is the future. So where is the gain? Where is the upside if everyone agrees that internet is the future? There is no upside. So when everyone starts to join the party, let's say, then it's time to leave. So that's late stupid. Late stupid is a signal to exit. So it's time to get out. You were lucky to be early stupid potentially, and when everyone else starts to join, it's late stupid, and then you exit. And that's it. And when you notice that some smart people are starting to try to make specific bets, like they want to bet on this versus that, etc., then it's a warning sign that late stupid is coming. It has not yet come. Maybe it's not yet time to sell. When people are trying to be late smart, you still wait. But when late stupid comes, then it's probably time to leave the party. So this is the idea. So we have this quadrant again. So we have early and late, smart and stupid. So we have early stupid, late stupid, and those are the most interesting. So ideally we want to enter as early stupid and exit as late stupid. And then there is early smart, which is very risky in my opinion, because it may end up becoming a loss if you are wrong about being smart. So even if you were right about being early, but you end up being wrong about being smart, it will be a loss. So early smart is dangerous. And late smart is more I think, to be used as a signal to get ready to exit. So because there is probably going to be late smart before late stupid. So late smart is a sign that late stupid is coming.